Questions orales. The honourable member from Regina Capel.
After 9 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, Canadians are getting poorer. His inflationary deficits are pushing up inflation and interest rates. That's because when the Prime Minister goes into the markets and borrows billions and billions to fund his spending spree, that bids up the interest rates for everyone else. And a new report from the Bank of Canada is shocking. Average mortgage payments will rise by more than 20% in the next couple of years. Where the heck are Canadian families supposed to come up with an extra few $100s just to pay higher mortgage payments for the homes they already own?
I'm going to ask members just to be very conscious of the language that they use. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, given that it is my first opportunity to speak in the House today, I want to speak about a very grave threat to Canadians. Last week, the Conservative leader said he is going to ignore our charter rights.
That's right.
This week, a Conservative MP stood up in this House and said he's opposed to a woman's right to choose. And now Conservative MPs are outside attacking a woman's right to choose. So now we know the truth. They're going to attack our charter rights. They're going to attack the rights of every woman in Canada.
Hear, hear. Thank you, colleagues. And certainly we all want to hear the member from Regina Capel. I'll ask the member from New Brunswick Southwest, who is a respected member in this House, to please to hold back until he has his voice. The honourable member from Regina Capel.
None of that is true, Mr. Speaker. She's just desperate to distract from her own record. And she's trying to console Canadians by saying that everything's okay because she hasn't quite maxed out the national credit card just yet. But all of that spending and borrowing is having an impact. In fact, Desjardins Financial has concluded that output per capita fell in every province last year, which is the broadest base standard of living decline in Canadian history other than the pandemic, costing Canadian families $4,200 a month. Will somebody over there please cut up the national credit card before more Canadians go bankrupt?
Again, I'm going to ask all members to please to only take the floor, and I'll ask the honourable member from Orleans, who is also another respected member of the House, to please only take the floor when she is addressed. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, there was a lot of shouting while I was speaking from the other side of the House. And that is because they are afraid that Canadians are starting to understand their real plan. Canadians have seen they hang out with white supremacists and don't disavow them. Canadians have seen they are getting ready to tear up the Charter of Rights. And now we know the first right they're going to attack, a woman's right to choose, just like the far right has done south of the border. But we will not let them.
Hear, hear. The honourable member from Regina Capel.
We'll take no lessons from a government that's trampling over free speech rights by trying to control the internet and control what Canadians can see and post online. But, Mr. Speaker, for random Liberals hoping that when the outgoing Prime Minister finally leaves, a new Liberal leader will rescue them, they're about to be sorely disappointed. Mark Carbon Tax Carney continued his Liberal leadership campaign in the Senate yesterday, where he pushed the same radical agenda, endorsed the current Prime Minister's carbon tax, and couldn't come up with even a penny to cut in wasteful spending. If Mark Carbon Tax Carney won't do it, the current Prime Minister won't do it, will somebody over there axe the tax and fix the budget?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I am really delighted to hear the Conservative House Leader talk about the rights of Canadians and how important they are. I'm a woman, I'm a mother, and let me tell you what the most fundamental right of every woman and girl in Canada is. The right to control your own body. It is time for the Conservatives to stand up and clearly say, are they going to defend a woman's right to choose? Because what we're hearing from them is they want to end it.
Tweet that.
Finance.
Mr. Mr. Speaker, our government absolutely understands that now is the time to invest in Canada and Canadians, to invest in housing, to invest in affordability, to invest in economic growth. And we know we have to do it in a fiscally responsible way, which is why we are asking those at the very top to pay a little bit more by increasing the capital gains inclusion rate. When it comes to the grocery sector, Mr. Speaker, we know that Canada needs more competition, and that's why we've brought in a once-in-a-generation change to Canada's competition law. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Calgary Forest Lawn.
After 9 years of this Liberal NDP Prime Minister, Canada has turned into a nation of renters. After spending $89 billion on a photo op slush fund for housing, rents and mortgages doubled. The dream of home ownership for an entire generation is dead. Canadians are stretched because of higher taxes and higher rent, like the carbon tax scam that increased, making it harder for Canadians to pay for rent and food. Was it fair to increase the carbon tax scam 23% when 70% of Canadians told them not to?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, if my honourable colleague is concerned about tax increases, I suggest he talk to the leader of his own party who's proposing to increase taxes on new apartment construction by putting the GST back on apartment rentals in this country. Mr. Speaker, their plan is to raise taxes on home construction. Their plan is to cut funding for the communities that are going to build homes. He has actively promised in the media that he views the role of the government not to participate in housing. On our side of the House, we're going to make the investments necessary to solve the housing crisis. I hope the Conservatives will join us.
The honourable member from Calgary Forest Lawn.
We won't take any lessons from the worst immigration and housing minister in Canadian history. And now we have Mark Carbon Tax Carney preaching the same radical agenda in his Liberal leadership like this Prime Minister. He won't denounce the Liberal carbon tax and commit to cutting 1 penny of Liberal waste. Whether it's Carney or this Prime Minister, the inflation-driving deficits will continue. And just like the carbon tax scam, none of them are worth the cost. Will any other Liberal leadership candidate stand up today, show some common sense, and declare they'll finally axe the tax?